Howdy. Welcome all my Whiting Farms fly tying friends and also anybody out there who really enjoys and loves fly tying. Tonight I'm going to tie for you a particular pattern that I've been playing with for the course of the year. I have a couple of different names for it. Rock 'em, knock 'em, sock 'em done, and because it can kind of be a crippled, it could be a little bit of a knockdown done, it can be sitting as a regular done. There's lots of ways to do things with this particular fly, and here's the thing, it's doing really well. Now there's really nothing that is, or very few things in fly fishing that are truly revolutionary, truly brand new. This is not super brand new. It takes a couple of ideas of a couple of patterns, maybe presents them in a little bit of a new way, but it has caught a good number of fish. For those of you who do not know, my home waters are the Delaware River. I fish it a lot. And this is not an easy river to fish. It's one of the most challenging rivers in the country. So coming up with a fly pattern that catches consistently in these waters are very difficult. I tried it early on, caught some fish with it, gave it to a few friends of mine who were guides. They did really well with it, started catching some real plus size fish with it. So today I'll show you how to tie this particular fly. For this fly, you're going to need Hendrickson dubbing. I make my own. You can get whatever available wherever you want. You're going to need whiting dry fly hackle, size 14. This is a very, very sweet neck. As you can tell, I've picked this one pretty dry, all right? So I'm just starting to pick away at this one, and what I like to do, this particular neck is chock full of 16, 18, and 20 hackle. So what I would like to do is I tend to pick for 14s with this one. I tend to pick from the sides where there's a lot of size 14 hackle. So here it is. And when I say size 14 hackle, I'm going to be tying a size 12 fly. So I like to undersize it one size with this particular pattern. And you can use any kind of tailing material that you're comfortable with. I'm going to use microfibets and see how they work out. All right. It's been a good fly during the course of the year. There is no fly on this river that always catches fish. This does really well, and it's caught more than its fair share of fish. I was fishing a model of this fly for the sulfur hatch just like a week or so ago, a week or two, and there was a thread in Facebook about this where they were talking about, hey, anybody fishing up in the Barking Dog section of the West Branch? Me and my buddies were all fishing, the thread said, and we couldn't touch a fish all night, and I had done particularly well that night, and most of the fish I caught were on this fly tailored to the sulfur hatch. So it's a real effective fly. It does very, very well. And now it's time to tie the thing. So when we tie this fly, we tie it on any, Hendrickson's typically a 12 or 14. One hook that I really like is the Fulling Mill 50-50. Fire hole hooks are very good too. So you can use whatever hook style that you want to, but I've had a lot of luck with the 50-50. All right, so obviously the first thing we're going to do is wind the thread on for the hook, and you can tie this in either a with a shuck or with a split tail. The shuck's really easy. You just put some Z-line out the back. So what I'm going to do is the more difficult version, which is basically tying with the split tails, and I'm going to do that right now. Unfortunately, I don't have a light dedicated in this area, so my vision is not going to be as good as it normally is. That was one of my dogs. I have 5 of them. All right, so anytime you want to split a tail, attach the thread, wind it to the bend of the hook, get it going right to the point where it will drop off there, and then I like to loop this thread over, pull it through a little bit, and that gives me twice as wide with the thread. And what that'll let me do is that'll let me split the tails just a little bit better on this particular fly. I need to adjust these jaws a little bit. Hush. Sorry about that. A little real life time practice there. Can you not argue with me? Thank you, Ziva. Now be quiet, girl. Okay, so we have the hook set up, and the first thing that we're going to do is split the tails. So I only use 2 microfibrils. I don't think it's necessary to use 4. Here's my 2 fibers, and I lay them out in the back. I want to be a little longer than a hook shank. I have to apologize. I've been tying streamers lately, so my sense of proportion might be just a little bit off. Wrap it 2 times. Yeah, it's a little bit off. I got to pull it forward a little. Okay. Wrap it a little bit forward. Split the tails. Pull this right up in between them. So what I've done is I've pulled that thread that I was leaving off the back right up in between. And there we go. Okay. So that is the first part of what we have going on. Trim to shape. So the first part, split the tails. Got a nice little split tail going on there. Helps float the fly. On to the next part. I need to dub an abdomen. For the most part, the Delaware is a river where sparse is better. So I'm looking to tie a sparse abdomen on here. I don't need much because A, I like it sparse, and B, the abdomen really doesn't go that far into the body. Okay, might have a little extra on here, we'll see as time goes on. When I look, there's lots of different ways to do this, and no one way is more right than another, but I like with my bodies and dubbing or floss or whatever to go down and back, to put 2 layers on. So I go down and back, nice thin body, very slight taper to it. And there we go. Okay, very good. You can see it right there. Nice, thin, the red-brown male Hendrickson, if you will. Now, we get to the part of this. Now, on the Delaware, again, sparse is very important. You don't want to over-hackle your flies. And I mean that both in the sense of the length of the hackle and how many turns you take. So what I'm going to do now is take my feather, and I'm going to lay it along the shank, and I like to leave the first little bit bare because that way I don't get fibers given an attitude as you lay them out. Okay. So this is the thorax area of the fly, and I'm going to take 3 turns through this thorax area. I'm going to cover over a little bit of the abdomen because I needed the thorax to be a little bit bigger. And, you know, being a thorax, it's going to be a little bit wider than the abdomen was, if I'm doing it right. Not too much wider, just a little bit wider. Okay. I like to do this with my vise so I get a really good view of it. My hook's not in there that tight, so there we go. There's my thorax area, and I hope if you zoom in there that you can see a little bit of a bump, and then I'm going to palmer this with just 3 turns through that thorax area. Ready? 1, 2, and a 3rd turn in the front. I actually like to go 1 extra in front because that really locks the fiber in, the feather in, so it doesn't slip. Okay. And now I'll tie right back to the beginning of that thorax. Okay, got a couple of 8th graders. 8th graders, by the way, never do what they're told, and they cop a bit of an attitude. Okay, you're liable to have a little bit of fibers out of place here when all is said and done, and that's because I just can't see without a bright light on top of the fly. Okay, so we have a sparsely hackled, we have an abdomen, we have a thorax. And the next thing we're going to do is put on a wing. Now the original pattern I showed you, the picture of earlier in the video, that is done with a high-vis wing or an EP fiber wing, any kind of poly wing. This one I'm not going to do with a poly wing. What I've been doing a lot lately is snowshoe rabbit wings. I love snowshoe. Snowshoe just catches a lot of fish. It floats forever. I like the synthetic wings as well. They're both really good wings or wing material, but just something about snowshoe. I catch a few more fish with it, and it's super, super durable. Real easy to see on the water too. Okay. So let me see if I've got this laid out right. Normally, you know, fly tires, normally we do like a couple of dozen at a time. So things are laid out really well. Right now, this is the first one of these I've tied in a couple of weeks, so I have to double check all my proportions. Okay. It was a little over the eye, if you can tell that, and I just relaxed the thread and pull it back a little bit to get it locked in place. Okay. There we go. You can see the mayfly wing sticking up there. I'm actually going to go back and trim this. I don't care if I trim snowshoe. I trim snowshoe with scissors all the time, and I'll show you how to do the trimming in just a minute. I usually put a little touch of dubbing on the bigger flies. If it's a smaller fly, like a small olive or a small sulfur or any other pattern that's like 18 and below, sometimes 16, I'll skip this step. But for the bigger flies, like a Hendrickson, this particular fly is a 12 or 14, I will put a little bit of dubbing right here up in front of the wing. And now whip finish 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, I do apologize for the fact that there's going to be some fibers sticking out. I just don't have the light to really see them, so as best I can guess, I'm just trimming them off right now. You'll notice that this wing is a little bit long. I don't care. Like I said, I'm going to go through and trim it. Now, one of the things I like is, see how it's sitting a little bit backwards like this little taper right here? That's more like a mayfly wing than sticking straight up in the air. So I just come through now. Okay, I'll do it from the bottom up so you get a pretty good view. Actually, I'll do it from the top down, even though it's kind of awkward on my hands to do, but I'll try to do it as best I can so that you can see better. And I'll just go through right like that. Basically treating the snowshoe as a synthetic. And you can see the wing sitting right there. Let me just trim it a little bit more so that I can see. There we go. All right, and there is the wing completely done. Now the only other thing I need to do on the pattern is I don't want the hackle all the way around the hook, okay? I want the hackle more or less flat. So I come underneath right here and I just trim it out. Now, the most important thing about a fly is how it looks on the bottom. And it's a real buggy looking fly. You can see that you've got a sparse abdomen. The thorax gets just a little bit thicker. Okay, right up through a very small head area. Mayflies have small heads. And then you can see the wing is pretty much like a mayfly wing. And there's the pattern. Rock 'em, sock 'em, knock 'em down, done. It does sit normally beautifully in the water, but it can on a windy day get blown over, and that's kind of a cool thing. I've caught fish with it turned on its side. So productive fly, good fly. Now, it's important to note, no fly on the Delaware River always works. I've had fish come up underneath this, drift with it, refuse it, and go back to the bottom. I've had fish come up and take. A lot of fish have come up and take. But here's the thing. On the Delaware, there are a lot of flies that won't even raise them up off the bottom. So while this fly, not every fish takes this fly, it definitely gets the interest of the fish, and it's produced this year. Normally I would tell you that I'm a parachute guy. I love parachute flies. I've definitely caught bigger fish on this fly than I have on a parachute this year. And I've caught about the same amount, maybe a little bit more than on a parachute. So there's a pattern tied up for you. Play with it, improve it, come up with some of your own ideas, put it in there. It's a pretty simple pattern and it works really, really, really well. Great tying, happy tying, bend that rod, go catch a bunch of fish. Have a good one.